Welcome to our March workshop, How to Propose and Win Work. I feel like this is going to be a popular one. I know that building your business and making that money is the most important thing to those of us who work for ourselves. So I have thought through the process that I go through, and we've put some real work into this one, and I hope it's beneficial for everyone. So with that, let me remind you, my goal here is to make this very easy and consumable. These are snackable workshops. So we're going to run through this probably in about 20 minutes. And then if there are questions, I'm happy to take them. If not, I'll leave this. The recording will get posted in the community, and we'll share some of the resources that we have for you guys that go with this event. So great. So let's get started. All right. The hell am I? Why should you listen to me? Well, because I have been there. I've been an independent consultant now for over 10 years. And I think I'm a fairly successful one at that. I think anyone that can consistently generate enough income for themselves and their families for a whole decade is probably doing pretty well in this business. So it started out, some of you know, as just me. And in the last 5 years, we've grown Keenan Reid Strategies. Now we're probably I've lost count of how many consultants we have, which is always a great thing. I think I'm somewhere around 12 or 13. So a baker's dozen, and growing. So we're growing pretty fast now that I've been really focusing on the strategies I'm about to share with you. And what I have found through doing this is that it's really not rocket science. Okay, like the work that we do is way harder than actually building relationships, proposing and winning work. And if anything, I've actually started to find that it's fun. It's really just about being consistent and having a method, and then making the time for it, which turns out is sometimes the hardest part, but easier with a framework. So that's kind of why I feel like I'm the right person to speak about this. Let's go to the next page and talk about the pain I felt for a long time and the pain I bet some of you all are feeling. So here's the thing. If you're an independent consultant and you're kind of X strategy, whatever firm, you've never had a real sales job. But really, and intellectually, you probably understand and have done lots of projects on how to run a sales pipeline, right? You know it moves in stages from prospecting to consideration on through close and renewal and loyalty and connects back around. Like intellectually, you know how to do this, but you've probably never actually done it yourself before. And it may feel a little daunting. It may feel like you lack a little bit of confidence in this area. Or it may just feel like you need some help with a framework and organization to help you get started, and then you can keep doing the work. I know for me, it really has been a mix of those three things. And really, at first, it started to be the lack of confidence, honestly, that just kind of held me back. But once I started to get over that and realized I had a framework that works, like I said, it's really become a really fun part of my job, which surprises no one more than me and probably my husband. So let's get started. Here's what I'm going to teach you today. All right. First thing, how do you approach relationship building really for the long term with commercializing yourself in mind? Second, we're going to talk about how to identify and define a problem that a client is actually going to pay you to solve. Okay. They have to pay you to solve it. That's the point of this. 3, I'll share the proven method that we have in the templates for writing different types of consulting proposals. And really here, the purpose is to how do you balance the amount of time spend you put into a proposal and how much you want to get paid, all right? So said more politically, what are the documents you need to demonstrate your value? And we've got a ton of templates on that, along with some legal agreements you can take as a first step. We'll share those. And 4, how to intelligently follow up with clients until you get the yes, but without being annoying. And I think a common problem and really the root of the confidence problem for a lot of people is that you feel like your follow-up can be annoying. And so I've kind of figured out a way where I hope I'm not being annoying. And if I am, at least I feel like I am less so. So all of these 4 things are key parts of the process. I'm going to show you that in the next slide, but ultimately what we're trying to do here is get to a signed contract. Okay, here's the framework. We love frameworks. You're going to start with a list of 100 prospects, okay? Mine is in Excel. I have recently moved it to Asana, but do not overcomplicate this, okay? It can literally be on your whiteboard or on a piece of paper. It's 100 names. And think of these names not as these random abstract groups of people. These are the 100 people that if you ran into them in an airport, you'd say hi. That's simple, okay? Then with that list, you're going to programmatically move them through 4 stages. First stage is you're going to really focus on just building relationships with them, but you're going to think of yourself as a detective. You're going to ask questions that help you uncover clues about their business in the hope that those questions uncover an opportunity. Next, through those clues and repeated conversations, eventually you will land on a problem that they might pay you to solve. And then you'll move to the third stage, which is you write a proposal and you prove you can solve it, okay? And the way that usually works is you're going to document your methodology, okay? So you'll build this proposal, but really focusing here on the how. And I'll talk about why the how matters. And then you're going to talk them through that proposal and approach this as like you're trying to find a yes, right? What are the things that they need and that you need to get to that signed contract? So the key to making this process really convert, because let's focus on the idea of like we are trying to convert clients and you want to look at your conversion. It's really consistent contact with that prospect pool over a long period of time. More conversations are going to equal better relationships, and better relationships are going to lead to more opportunities. All right. So let's get in. Let's look at stage 1. Building your relationships like a detective. I really feel like this step is the most important. And I really think as I've talked to folks, I see this bit differently than most people. So in order for you to find professional services work, it is always going to boil down to a relationship. But I'm going to be really transparent here. When you are building these relationships, you have an ulterior motive, okay? You want to convert these relationships to dollars eventually. And I think the sooner you accept the fact that that is your goal, the easier this becomes. Again, I want you to think like a detective. Imagine a board or a bulletin board of pictures with red yarn drawn between them, okay? That is the universe of the problem you are trying to solve. I want you to think about that as you building the universe of your customer's business, okay? Or your future customer's business. You want to understand their business model. You want to understand their business objectives. You want to understand all of the obstacles and blockers that might stand between them and a project outcome or their next promotion. And you want to understand their teams, the people involved, the politics at play, and their hypotheses on what might be challenging them. So how do you build this? Well, you ask a lot of questions over time. Okay, think about this as discovery. And during this discovery process, you really want to document what you find. So you're ultimately having a 1-page document, map, notes, whatever works for you on all of the things you've learned over multiple conversations. So the trick here is don't expect in your first, this is not you go into one conversation and you sell, right? This is a dialogue that you want to drive over time. So at the natural end of each conversation, you have to create an action that allows you to follow up and have another conversation, okay? So take homework away. This can be really simple. Maybe it's a question you said you'd research. Maybe it's an article that you mentioned that you want to source and provide them with that article. Maybe it's a personal connection and introduction you want to make to someone else. But you are just looking for something that gives you an excuse to send them a valuable follow-up note and put more time on their calendar. That's it. So keep this up. And before you know it, I think you're going to be informed enough on their business to ask good questions. I think you probably, like if you're targeting what does good look like, it's probably a minimum of 3 to 4 conversations. Like I have sold work over a breakfast taco in a first conversation, but that's not the norm. All right. You have to think about this as you're going to build this relationship over time. And really you want to start with that warm list of people you'd say hi to in an airport. So they should know you and have some sense of your capability already. All right. So that's 1. Step two, now you're going to land on that problem. After you've gone through those conversations and you've built trust, you're going to have the opportunity to go deeper and deeper, right? You're going to have enough questions now by that kind of, let's think about this as like the third conversation. You should have enough information to start to ask really good questions that are aligned to your skill set and your area of expertise. All right. So let's take me just as a basic example. My area of expertise, I think it's helping people get really clear on what they need to do. So that sometimes means it's transformation work. Sometimes it means it's strategic planning work. Sometimes it means it's like big 9-figure initiative, new business model planning. But all of those things, the red thread is like, I help people make things simple and get clear. So I ask questions like these. And so if those are the inputs, what do you think the output should be? Who makes the decision on that? All right, so do you think everyone is clear on that priority you just stated? Do you feel like everyone is working in the same direction? You can tell all of these questions are open-ended, and they're all trying to get them to give me as much information and have a really good dialogue, okay? So stuff like that. Eventually, I'm gonna listen to them enough, and I'm gonna start mirroring what they say, play it back, and I'm gonna try and test a problem statement. Okay. And I'll keep doing that until we both feel like, oh, you're right. Like that is the problem. You have made that simple for me, right? And in that, I've already started to demonstrate the value when we can start to think about like the how and how I might come in and help more, right? All right. So if that's now you've landed on the problem, let's move to step 3. Okay. This I think of as the quicksand step. This is the most dangerous place in the process. By this point, you have likely invested a lot of time into building a relationship. Okay? You've tentatively identified a problem you can solve. But now you actually have to convert that theory and conversation into dollars and a contract. So at this point, I have found, well, in my experience, I find you're in one of two situations. Okay. Either this is really easy. They're gung-ho to get started. You've sold business over a taco. Or you think that they might have an opportunity and maybe they are not super clear on the fact that, are you a free advisor? Are you just a thought partner for them? Or are you someone that they would want to bring in and they're not quite sure what that would look like, okay? And so if you've sold business over a taco, like please text me because I want to buy you a taco and figure out what you're doing too. But if you're in the other camp, and I think most engagements really are, let's think about what you want to do. Again, quicksand step. What's dangerous about this? You can waste a ton of time and effort, right? And if you're building the business while doing the business, this is not something that you have time for. So I think you need to hear to be just cut to the chase, right? Super direct. You want to ask them 2 questions, right? 1, is this the problem that you bring in a consultant to solve? Point blank. Now, if they say no, wonderful. We move back to step 1 and we continue building the relationship. Second question, if they say yes, what budget are you allocating to solve it? Here, you're testing for, are they ballpark in your range? If you're a $50,000 a month consultant and they say $5,000, go back to step 1, okay? But if you're a $50,000 a month consultant and they say, gosh, I really don't know. I really haven't thought about how much should this cost, which typically it's like a normal question people ask, right? They're like, I have no clue. What do you think? Now we're good, okay? Now you're gonna start to progress this into the proposal phase, and you're gonna have to document what you're gonna do and how you would solve that problem, all right? So I think the way that you do this and the way that you document your proposal is really gonna depend on how competitive the situation is, all right? So here again, let's think about the cost of your time. So if it is a non-competitive situation and you really just need to get something on paper, don't spend a ton of time writing a 10-page proposal. We've got a short form template for you. You can do it in 250 words, okay? I just need to see something on paper. If this is yes, and we have an RFP process and it is competitive, then you're gonna have to spend the time in doing that. And we have a proposal form for that on the site as well. And even in that proposal form, after you've filled it out the first time, most of the sections are really about you and your expertise. And so they can just be, a light customization probably works for those sections. But in the meat of both of these, you really want to define how you're going to do this. Okay. In this, you're going to really cover 5 topics. Okay. And again, you see this in the templates, but let's just go through them now. You're going to understand your understanding in the context for the problem, a simple problem statement, the objectives that you've aligned with them for what you would want to achieve in the project. Then the biggie, number 4, how you're going to solve the problem, okay, in your methodology. One note here, I have found that in really competitive situations, you actually don't get chosen based on price. You get selected based on the validity of your methodology and the fit with the client team, like of that methodology within the client team. The client really wants to understand how their money's going to be spent. And I think there's a reason for that. I think when the client is making the decision, you have to realize they are not the only person making that decision, right? They have to justify that to groups within their organization. Right? They're probably going to have to justify this to their executive team why they're spending this much money. They may need to make a justification and a budget justification to the finance team. So they're going to have to show ROI and a business case for what they're trying to achieve with you. And they probably have to justify it to their own team. Like if you are an executive leading a team and you're bringing in an outsider, what is the team thinking, right? So they're going to need to have stories for each of those things. And I think a lot of the reason you do the how so well, like you document that, is so that they have practical justification to go back and build that business case, convince the more senior executives that this is the right time and money for the business, and let their teams know that this is not a threat, that it's something that's going to be beneficial for them in the long term, and that you're bringing a consultant in, or that they're bringing a consultant in, really to augment and accelerate the work that the team just couldn't do, either for skill or capability purposes, and it's going to be better for everybody. But I just find that so important. Don't think about this as one person making a decision. Think about helping that client justify that decision to others, okay? And the input you put into the proposal, you are putting words into their mouth, right? So that's important. All right. So once you have this complete, you're going to send it to them and then set up a call. And now we move into stage 4 and finding the yes. Okay. Now I think this is the easy and the fun part. All right. This is the last mile. And if you've done all of the work in steps 1 through 3 correctly, this is simply about aligning on timeline, budget, start date, all the things that really matter, like just the things we need to get stuff done. Okay. And here I think it's fine. Like this is a 2-way conversation. And if the client is already bought into it, like you sold the work over a taco, it just may be some really simple questions about like, when are you going to get started? How do you get connected into the systems? Are there procurement things you need to go through? Right. If it is more competitive or there are real questions on budget, this is where I say you kind of can scope up or scope down depending on what you need to do to get in the door. Now, here's how I would treat this. Let's take some real life scenarios. If this is a client for whom I have done work in the past, and it's a project that the scope or the budget is truly not in line with what I do, I will say no. And I will talk about this in a second. I will say no, and I will help provide a referral to someone else, because I don't want to set expectations for our work like different than they've been in the past. But if it's a new client, I am going to do more things to get in the door and prove myself. I would definitely scope down work. I would make a one-time price concession, particularly if it's a name brand client and there's some upside benefit for you, or if it's something where you feel like you're going to get a great case study out of it. I might scope that work down so the time was more manageable for me to be in line with that budget. But that's how I would be thinking about this. And here, you also want to think through back to what we were saying about the justification to others. So in a more competitive situation, you might find that they're going to look and see kind of who out of this this consultants that could do the best job. And remember, they are asking those questions to you so that you can put the words in their mouth to help them go justify it to someone else. Okay. So treat this as your first act of service. You're helping them make the right choice and justifying that to others. A couple of other things here, though. If they are justifying this to others, you need to make sure that whatever they go and look at that's not in that conversation is good. So you need to be Googleable, just like some basic hygiene here. You need to make sure your LinkedIn is solid, validates what you do, because people will look you up. Okay. And it's still funny. I do go see other independent consultants and I go to their LinkedIn and I think like, this isn't really like justifying what I know they can do. I feel like that's really important. But net, your goal here is to ultimately help them make that choice, justify it to others, and just make their lives easier. All right. Okay. So that's a lot. But before we conclude, I wanted to just make sure we shared our top tips. All right. Some of these I've mentioned, but let's go through them. Number one, stage one. Make sure you spend time on documenting the information you learn in prospecting calls. If you are talking to 100 people, even if you have a photographic memory, there is no way you can remember that information for the next time you talk to them in a month or a quarter. All right. So block your calendar for the call and block 15 to 30 minutes after to write down your notes. Okay. Have a system. Again, it doesn't matter if it's whatever your system is, but save it somewhere where you can find it and prep for the next call. 2, sometimes you have to say no. Saying no actually builds trust. Okay. If you identify an opportunity, but it is not a clear win for you, you can be a resource and connection, and that is still valuable. Okay. You can provide guidance, referrals, or you can plainly just say, look, this isn't what I do. For example, at Keenan Reid, we used to bring in project or program managers to help with clients after we kind of done the strategy work. And it just didn't fit our model for a lot of reasons. And I always wanted to do it because I just wanted to take advantage of the fact that the dollars were there. But ultimately, I decided we can't do that work anymore. And I found a referral partner and I refer all of it out. And I get a cut of that revenue. It's much, much, much smaller. But what it's actually done is it has made the message that we have and it's made the value that we provide really, really clear to clients, which has actually helped us grow. So I really recommend saying no when you need to. All right. Number 3, classic rookie mistake. Do not undersell your rate. I know it is tempting. Okay. But your experience and your methods justify your rate. By the way, I haven't put this in here. We have a rate calculator you can use in the community if you're kind of curious about how you get to a rate. But the sales cycle for a new client here is really long. And you have to think about the fact that you've baked in some of that time into your rate. All right. So do not. A first-time discount, okay, as long as you tell them what the first rate is and then you go back, but do not wildly go more than 15% off of your rate. Okay, 4, you got to save time. Use a proven template for proposals. Spend time in these proposals on getting the scope and objectives and really your method right. But don't reinvent the wheel every time, okay? Use what we have. And then last, just remember, this is all in the effort of long-term business growth, okay? Out of 100 people, how many of those yeses could you really serve? 3, okay? If it's just you, could you serve 5 over the course of a year? Great. It's 100 people. Do not get discouraged by the no. The no is just, if you've provided the action, it's just the invitation for the next question, or, the next conversation, the next referral, the next step. So don't get discouraged over that. Think about consistency over the long term. All right. So finally, we are coming up at the end of time here. I'm going to leave you with some resources. We have an infographic that summarizes this information, but I think more useful is we have proposal and SOW templates. We also have ICA as independent consultant agreements. So we have some template legal agreements, time-based project fees, just like different ways you might do them. Always make sure that you review those and customize them to your needs. And if you feel like you need to, vet them with your attorney. I change mine for different situations and consult my attorney, a couple times a year when I need to. So spend the money in doing that. But I hope that all of this makes your life a little bit easier and it helps your business grow. So with that, I will conclude. If anybody wants to refer other members like you, we really could use some folks on the Keenan Reid side. Just a shameless plug here. We're looking for ex-McKinsey, Bain, BCG, PwC, Deloitte, or Accenture strategy, really only strategy groups, people that have that experience, plus practical industry experience, who are looking for either full-time, interim, or fractional work. We're adding, last month we added 3 people. So if you take that forward 6 months, maybe we add 5 people a month. I've got 35 in the database, so we could really use some folks. So refer them to theconsult.co or send them directly to me. Here's my address. And thank you so much for joining today.